Dawn's here. Had everybody all queued up to show up, waiting for the doors to open.
Bob, who does your opening graphics for your videos?
I got that from a company that I found on Facebook, of all places. It's I still see their ads. It's cheap. It was like $20 or something like that.
And they did a bunch of them for you because I've noticed them changing recently.
I grabbed a couple. I grabbed two. Yeah, they had a like, I don't remember whatever it was, Good Friday sale or something like that, where it was, buy two get one free or something like that.
Uh-huh. They look good.
Yeah, thank you. They had about like 20 or 30 different templates you could choose from.
Uh-huh. Yeah, look good.
So it's Saturday the 19th of October. This month is going by fast. Holy cow. It's going to be Halloween already. This is an interesting time in the stores, isn't it? It's like you can choose whether you want Halloween decorations, Thanksgiving decorations, or Christmas decorations. They're all out right now.
That's sad but true.
Spanish, you can buy stuff.
We just order stuff on Amazon all the time, so we don't go into the stores. Don't go into Home Depot and see all that. I used to work at Home Depot, and I hated the all the sounds from all the things, and
Yeah, all the motion sensitive stuff.
Yeah.
Every time you walk past.
all the Halloween stuff. Ooh, and
You don't speak badly too much. Vaughn isn't here, but he's big into Halloween and Christmas, like decorating his yard.
Mm.
I got to thinking though, like when you walk in Home Depot, if you guys have been there, like the latest thing is all these like 8 foot tall, monsters and people and stuff. What the heck do you do with those to store
Well,
them?
Vaughn has a warehouse, right? He has that big building.
Well, he does, but I mean, the average person, like I can just see like the impulse buy, and then November 1st, they're like, well, what now?
And the Christmas ones are getting big like that too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, at least most of those are inflatable, packed back down into a little box or something.
Do you see a lot of people decorating their house for all this stuff, Christmas, Halloween in Texas?
Not so much. I tend to think based on my travels, the more seasonal the weather is, the more people get into decorating. Like in Florida, maybe a few people put Christmas lights up, but I mean, back home in Edmonton, yeah, everybody put Christmas lights up.
I was thinking maybe it's the further north you go, the more you see that. I don't know.
And they start rolling Christmas Story nonstop.
Yeah, yeah. That happens too.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Mhm. Give everybody a couple more minutes to get signed in. I sent the notification out on time this time. We have more members than ever. I think we're at about 130 DiveTribe members, but it's just like the same people coming to hang out here. I don't know what else to do.
Well, boating season's over for me, so I'll be here more often.
Dave's sharing to 21. Is that
Nice
is that
21.
70? Is that 72nd scale?
96.
96. Holy.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, baby boat. Look at that.
Very nice. It's a bulkhead for a 32nd parallel type 23.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks cool. Now, was that a kit, like a plastic kit or something? Where'd that come from?
Well, you'll all be very pleased to know that this project started out as a master sent to me, a master that was produced by those godless robots. And then I turned that master into tooling, and from that derived the GRP hull, resin appendages, and metal propellers.
Wow,
So I'm producing those for a few friends and myself.
cool.
Yeah, all this is in support of that activity once a year, the fleet run, which is exclusively either 196 or 1/100 scale.
Right.
In fact, its debut was there last weekend.
Where's the venue at, Dave?
It's in North Carolina, a place called Rocky Mount.
Is it a pool or a lake?
Well, it's a lake. It's called, oddly enough, City Lake. And it's beautifully appointed, very large, clear, relatively clean. And we had perfect weather. The 3-day event, couldn't ask for better weather. And the boats operated pretty well. And we disrupted quite a few fleet maneuvers. Me and Jake were the submarine. Oh, it was me, Jake, and Kevin. We brought submarines and just tore them up.
Any video?
Yeah, I got some video. I'm learning how to edit that stuff. Yeah, I've got a video of the skipjacks, a Perman, and the 21, and maybe next week, huh?
Well, I'm glad Tom is here. So, like on a topic note, I wanted to open with an update on Subfest. So we're still, for those of you who forgot or didn't forget, I'm going to remind you anyway, rescheduled Subfest 24 and rebranded for Subfest 24 redo in May of next year, same venue. A couple of cool developments, one of which is we had talked at the last meeting about this idea of a mule taking submarines from the West Coast to the East Coast, which may potentially open up opportunities for people who live West Coast to hand over their boat, have it safely transported across the entire country, and then they could just hop on a plane as opposed to having to drive for a week there and back, as one or two of you may or may not have done in the past, right, Tom? So we're trying to figure out the logistics of that. He actually came to my shop on Friday, a gentleman by the name of Ron Lawrence, and a super cool guy in his RV. But he actually when I talked to him about it, he said he'd definitely be interested in doing that. He's based out of San Diego, so anything that would be, you know, in that area or on the route out, he would potentially be able to handle. So just wanted to put that out there. If you know anybody, or if you are on West Coast and would like to attend, and having to transport your submarines is a barrier, we're hoping to address said barrier.
We'll definitely blast that on their website, because I think that's a great opportunity.
I want to get locked in. He said he's just going to check his calendar and the path to see where potentially there could be pickup or drop off points. And then, yeah, he'd be more than happy if everybody could chip in for, you know, gas money or whatever that ends up looking like.
Yeah, that would be awesome, considering, as you know, Bob, how many times I've shipped my sub and it's come back in less than the condition it left in.
I think only one time I think it showed up in good shape. Every other time.
Yeah, every other time something's broken on it from putting on an airplane. So that's great. Would be thrilled.
Yeah. So that is cool. Oh man, this thing's talking to me. And then the other thing I was hoping, since Tom is here anyway, Tom, I was hoping to open up a dialogue with you about an idea of having Subfest West out in your neck of the woods. I think the proximity to, because you're in the grand scheme of things, you're in like relatively close proximity to Vegas itself, are you not?
Well, and everybody loves Vegas. I mean, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. And, you know, I think people would probably have a little bit more of an easier time convincing their significant others to go out to an event if they could head up to the strip for a few hours and do some shopping or, you know, whatever, while the boys go out and do boy things in the water.
Can we run our
Absolutely.
boats in the Bellagio fountain?
Yeah, we had talked about that last DiveTribe as well. It's one of those things where you got to know a person, I think.
I'll ask around just for the fun of it. Who knows? I mean, you don't know until you ask. So
I gotta think it would be the coolest thing. Like nobody knows about submarines, so I gotta think it would draw people. I can just imagine them all standing on the railing, right, overwatching all the
Right.
submarines moving around. Of course, then I can
No.
also imagine the submarine over one of the water jets as it goes off and gets exploded to 150 feet into the air.
I want that on film.
Yes.
The Colorado River, you know, that area that I run there is nice, but it's very rustic in the sense that, you know, they close down at evening, so we would have a night run there. There are bathrooms, but you know, if you want to go eat something, you have to travel somewhere else to get it. Now, across just maybe 10 miles away is Laughlin. So, you know, people could stay there, and the hotel rooms are pretty reasonable there. But yeah, yeah, we'll talk more. Let's see if we can do something about that.
Tom, the
Yeah.
Colorado River, where you operate, is that up or downstream from Hanford?
From who?
The Hanford facility where they have the reactors use Colorado as cooling water.
You know, I don't know. You know, the fish here don't have, you know, more than 4 or 5 eyes. They're okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
actually
honestly don't know.
the Columbia
all
River,
look
which
like-
runs west to Portland and out to the Pacific. It counts for a lot of Portland being weird.
So
Well, it's Renee and I were talking about taking a little like a weekend trip to Vegas, and if that's the case, we'll see if we could get together and we can maybe make a day of checking venues out or something. That'd be kind of cool.
that would be absolutely cool. I've got a couple of subs we could run too as well. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna put that on my to-do list.
Doesn't Cirque du Soleil have some sort of an Aquarius show or something?
Oh yeah, we run them in the aquarium every time you watch it. There you go.
Down to flip over the flavor to a Nautilus theme.
Yeah,
something, you know, very gothic or whatever, but involving submarines
Yes, absolutely.
and showgirls.
on the side,
And the first
everybody
time
be
a prop
distracted and
chops up
running
a
into each
fish.
other.
Yeah, we need mermaids for sure.
Yeah. All right, so that is Subfest. I got another big trip coming up November 4th. Logan and I are going to be flying up to Washington State and grabbing 14 submarines and driving back and picking up one more in Colorado before finally getting home. So if you saw my latest video, I highlighted a lot of those. I'm hoping to get some deposits on some for pre-sales to offset the expense of the trip. So if you're interested in a submarine, I've got them all kind of outlined in that video.
What is it that he's doing that he's letting them go?
This comes from an habitual pack rat, like many of us are, you know, the see the sub, buy the sub syndrome. So he, after many, many decades of submarine collection, is parting with the ones that, what's that show? Don't Feed His Happiness or something like that, whatever. You know, submarines that he bought just on impulse or just because he thought they were a good deal, but that he just really isn't passionate about.
That ratty manta ray looking thing looked interesting. I'd like to see a picture of that again.
Yeah, that was super cool.
Looks like somebody's mechano set or something. You put an articulated tail on that, a la the shark.
Yeah.
Be a neat little modification to it.
Well, it felt a lot like the trying to find the picture here.
Ornithopter or something, or
The submarine from Star Wars Episode 1 that they took to go visit the Gungan.
that thing with the swirly tail dancing thing.
This is what it looks like right here. So that's the top view.
Hmm.
And this is all scratch built fiberglass. And then that's the bottom.
Jeez.
So the side pods tilt for pitch control, and then the steering is handled through differential thrust.
Hmm.
Apparently.
Looks like something the Germans would have experimented with during World War II.
It looks a lot like the experimental aircraft that they built. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know exactly the ones you're talking about too. But this is just so interesting. It's like, you know, a big central thing for a ballast tank. Okay, I mean, you can see that or whatever. I don't even think this thing would need a ballast tank, honestly. About a dynamic diver would be cool. But then like a whole separate compartment just for a servo, and then a whole separate compartment just for the motor. It's an interesting setup. I don't know.
Does it have a belly that covers all this, or is all this guts exposed?
I think it's exposed, which actually I'm kind of stoked about. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah. Be
Yeah.
neater if it was ferret in like the shark or something, or like a manta if it had a skin on it and you didn't see all the crap. But you know, each their own.
Yeah.
Upside looks good. I just like to see a blended body,
yeah.
a little more hydrodynamic or something instead of like that other one you showed, the soda can that got crushed, the Titan thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like somebody call, hey, I got a sphere, let's cobble it together. Okay. Sorry, I meant, yeah.
Well, and you know, maybe even if that was engineered properly, you don't just like leave it sitting out for all the seals to rot and then say, oh, let's go visit the Titanic.
You got a mill, let's go for a ride.
Hey, I think I might have sold my plane today on an unrelated note. Spent the last 5 hours at the airport this morning with two different buyers that showed up, one of whom showed up unexpectedly. So hopefully one of the two is going to grab that. So I got to put the last miles on that before I let it go. So I got that going on. And then the last thing is just leading up to our topic today, the FrSky radios. We're going to go over quick setups and stuff like that. I know a couple of you have these radios, and some of you are further along in your journey to understanding them than others are. So I just want to take probably 15 or 20 minutes and just go over the basics to begin with. And then depending on demand, we can go into more like crazy stuff, like, you know, like mixes and locks outs and logic switches and, you know, modules and all of that stuff. But before we do, and since we're making pretty good time here so far, any comments or news or anything like that you guys want to share or bring up before we dive in?
Question, Bob. Is our registration, do we need to re-register because we had registered and paid for the previous one?
No, everything transfers over. Yeah, 100%. So everything is all good.
Okay.
I didn't look.
Okay.
I didn't look at the page for that yet. Is the hotel setup the same?
Hotel setup will be the same. I just haven't called to schedule the block of rooms. That's actually, it's on my to-do list to do this next week.
Yeah, and Bob, thanks for working with the hotel immediately. I had no trouble canceling.
Yeah, what I love, it sounded like it was an internal hotel policy in case of acts of God or something like that people can cancel without fee. So, and we are also obviously lucky that the venue itself was okay with us moving ahead 6 months, or back 6 months, with no penalty or without sacrificing the deposit that we had down there. So we're good to go, like it was meant to be or something. Would have been better if I wouldn't have been halfway to Arkansas when it all went down, but it's all good. Okay, let's talk radios. And the cool thing about FrSky and Ethos, they've actually got a simulator. Before you break your radio, you can download their simulator onto your computer and poke and prod and make things happen and test and do all that kind of stuff.
Is that a Windows only?
I think so. Yeah. And I don't know that they're still necessarily supporting it. I couldn't tell you. I downloaded this when I first got with them, but I've seen some postings that the people are having a hard time finding the software link. But this is what we've got. So this is the Ethos operating system. So terminology, FrSky is the manufacturer, FrSky. And Ethos is the operating system that drives it. It's the software platform. So we got 2 buttons and a touchscreen. If you've got the tandem radios or if you got the X14, it's not a touchscreen, and you have to use this fancy dial unit right here. So when you power it on, this is the screen that you get. The cool thing about this is all completely user selectable. You can have as many of these information screens as you want, and you can scroll through them. You can take a picture of your boat and have it displayed here if you want to. You can do like crazy things like record sounds and have it play sounds when you boot up or when you flick switches or when you do things. All sorts of different timers and telemetry information and all sorts of cool stuff. But we're going to start at the very beginning. We are going to take your receiver, whatever receiver it is, and we're going to pair it to this transmitter. So in order to do that, we're going to go into model, and we're going to go to RF system. If you have the tandem radios, it has an internal module. All the good stuff is built into the radio. If you got the X14, the 900 megahertz is an external module. So if you look inside, you can see the type that you want. So if you're running the tandem receivers, the TD series receivers, that's what you want, TD mode, but they've got different ones here. And then don't worry about all the other stuff. Just ignore it for now. You can have both your 2.4 and your 900 megahertz antennas on, which is what you want. And this is where you set your power level. So out of the box, and I made this mistake with Howard's radio. I didn't change it. So when I was testing his in the pool, it was broadcasting at 10 milliwatts, which is about 1/25 of what a standard Futaba radio does. And I didn't lose signal standing next to it in my pool until I was about 6 feet down, which is pretty darn cool. This will go all the way up to, I think 500 milliwatts on the 900 and 1,000 milliwatts on the 2.4. So you will get exponentially better reception by doing that. Now, if you're goofing around or if you've already bound your radio and you forgot to change the output power, you have to rebind the receiver to set a new power output, just to let you know. You can't just like quickly change that in your radio. You have to have the boat sitting in front of you to make those changes. So you got your receiver. What you're going to do, you need your battery pack to power up your receiver, or power of some kind to power up the receiver. You press and hold the register button on the side of the receiver, hold it down, and then give it power. All right, and then it's going to start blinking. And I should say, before you do that, hit this register button. So you hit the register button, this screen comes up, you press and hold, power up the receiver, and then it'll come up with this screen. You hit register, and it says registration okay. And the name will pop up over here. You're not done quite yet. Not done quite yet. Now you need to bind it. So the transmitter knows that receiver could potentially be used with this, but it doesn't know that you want to use that specific one right now to goof around with. So now you unplug your receiver, hit bind, and you pick whichever one it is you were binding. And this is all simulation, so this isn't exactly what you'd see, but I'm going to click that. And then when you plug your receiver in, it'll say bind OK. So there's 2 steps. You register it first, cycle the power off, hit bind, and then put the power on, and you're done. And I know that sounds like super complicated, but it's not. It'll literally take you 10 seconds to put a new receiver in your radio with every new boat you add to your fleet. So this is all getting recorded, by the way. So if you're lost, I see a lot of people scowling at me. If you're lost, go back to the recording and you can see it again. So again, just to quickly recap, let's say we want 200 milliwatts. You hit register, you hold down the button on the receiver, plug it in, hit register, and it'll say registration OK. Power off of the receiver, hit bind, plug in your receiver, and then when it pops up, click on it, bind OK. That's it. Compared to programming like an AD2 or a BLM, this is a cakewalk, all right? So now you have your receiver mount. But if you plug in, if you're like, yeah, you start plugging in servos, it's not going to work yet. We're not quite there. All right. We're going to go to that right now. Before we jump there, though, I just wanted to show you, this is also where you would set your fail-safe actions. And we're going to cover that in a little bit separately. So we're done here. I'm going to hit return. Now we are going to go into the mixer. And this is where you start setting up your channels. Let me get rid of this so that we start right from the beginning. So this is what it'll show up. It'll say, hey, you don't have a mix yet, you dum-dum. You need to create one. So this is where you start creating your channels in your receiver. You're telling the receiver what they are, what they do, and what output on the receiver you want them to be. So again, the cool thing about this is you could set up your throttle on channel 3 and your rudders on channel 1. And if you're running around and you're like, man, it would sure be cool if I could switch these around, you could literally do that from your transmitter in about 15 seconds and just keep running if you wanted to. You don't have to pull the boat out, pull the pins, move it around, you know, and all that stuff. Okay, no mix, add a new mix. And you want a free mix. Ignore all of these for now until we get to more complicated stuff. Free mix. And we're going to call this channel. I usually start in my old school way of doing things in the order of the channel. So channel 1 is usually rudder. Oops. So you're just going to take that in your little done. You always want it on. And for source, the really cool thing is whatever you want to control that, so you just grab that stick and move it. And it'll automatically recognize that's the input that you want to use. Now I can't do that because I don't have a stick. So I don't know. This is all weird. If I had a stick, I could do that. Don't worry about function type, don't worry about curves, but this is where you would set like exponential curves. So for example, if you had a super jumpy throttle, you could set a curve so that it comes on smoother and then ramps up faster. You can set your speeds, like how fast you want it to cycle, which is actually, you know, bow planes, think bow planes. You can have a nice 5-second sweep and that kind of thing. And then this is your endpoints, weight up and weight down. This is like your endpoint settings. I always recommend when you start out here, can I actually change this? Yeah, this is just, I have no way of, oh wait, yeah, I can, there we go, look at that. I would set this at like 50% on both of these. And the reason for that is just good practice so that when you finally get your boat hooked up and you're like, yahoo, and you move the stick, it doesn't overdrive your linkage, bend the rod, snap the linkage, set it at half or 30 or whatever, set it at 10, anything that's low so that you can move it up and get your perfect endpoints after, okay? And then you, oh, I'm done there. Why is this locked up? Hello. Ah, here. This is where you would set your reversing as well. If you needed to reverse a channel, if it's going the wrong way, you just click this and you'd be done. And the last most important thing is your output. So we know we're working with the rudder. We know we're using this stick. Now you tell it, I want you to output to pin number, whatever you want it to be, anything you want it to be. So channel 1, and it'll say, hey, this doesn't have a name. Do you want to copy the name? Yep. And now it's renamed that pin rudder. So when you're going back in later, you're like, oh, I remember which pin my rudder was on. It's pin 1 because it says so right here. And that's it. This is done. You've set up one complete channel. So you hit return. And now when you click on this again, you can add another mix, free mix, first position or wherever you want to put it. So now I'm going to just quickly go through and show you how quick it is to do this if you are setting this up in real time, because this is literally how fast it would be. Always on, pick your source. I pretend I pick my source. Not have any curves, we don't do anything there. We're going to set our weights. And this would actually go faster because it's a little faster on the radio than it is with me on my little dial on my mouse. Not going to adjust my speeds or anything. I don't need to reverse it yet because I don't know what it's doing. I don't have it in the model. Click, click, done. Second channel, all done. And you keep doing that through all of the functions that you want it to do. And you've got receivers with 6 channels, 8 channels, 10 channels, 12 channels, whatever you want. And you can have all of these set up exactly the way that you want it, to the exact pins that you want them on.
When you get to this point, is there a master list you can look down and see everything at the same time?
Yes, absolutely. You can go to outputs, and this is the big list. Now, if I actually had this connected to something, as I moved the sticks, you would see all of these moving. All of the little bar graphs would move, and the percentage thingies would be moving. But you can see channel 1 is rudder, channel 2 is pitch, blah, 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 blah.
How about on the mix menu? Can you see all your different mixes?
Yeah, so that would be this. If I had this set up properly, you'd see channel 2 pitch, and then what channel it was on listed right here. But there's multiple places where you can see this kind of stuff. So that is the most important thing. At this point, if you plug your servos in, you will be running your boat. It will all be working for you, okay? What else? Oh, let's talk about the fail safes now, because you don't want to go too far without setting up your fail safes. So you go to fail safes and it'll say not set. Oh my gosh, we need to fix that. I want custom fail safes. So let's pretend like channel 2 pitch is an important one. If you don't do anything here, it'll just hold at whatever position you were last in. That's the default, okay? But what you could do, let's talk about the pitch here. I want a custom. So you can either put in an actual number, move it to 50% or minus 50%, or even better, you move your stick to whatever position you want it to go to in a fail-safe situation, and hit this little shield, and it'll record the value that that stick is currently pulling. So in this particular case, I'm just going to pretend that this is going to take a million years. Can I just type this? Okay, this is really painful to do with this scroll wheel. But anyhow, it would show up here. And as you move your stick, it would show you where the stick is in relation to your fail-safe position. And you can do this with every single channel that you've programmed. So you can tell rudder to go to a certain position, forward planes, rear planes, ballast, emergency blow, throttle, all of that can have a pre-programmed position to go into upon loss of signal. Now, I want to touch base a little bit on this idea of the BLM versus this fail-safe. Some people say, oh, well, you know, we need the delay in there to eliminate the blowing of the ballast accidentally. The glitching does not occur with these radios. They will be absolutely rock solid. There's computer programming and software and computer chips and little elves with hats on that listen to the signal, and if it's doing something weird, an aberration, they just ignore it. And remember, we're talking about milliseconds here, so they just throw out all the bad signals, unlike some of the older low frequency radios. And then the other thing is that delay used to be put in place so that you wouldn't inadvertently blow gas and waste gas, right? In this particular case, my logic is if you're deep enough that you've lost signal, I want my boat back at that point. I want it back now. I don't want it back 5 seconds from now, 3 seconds from now, or 10 seconds from now. I want it up because a boat will travel 1 million miles in a random direction under the water in that period of time. So immediately when the boat loses signal, it will attempt to get up, or whatever you tell it to do. You can tell it to go down if you wanted to. And then it'll keep listening and then come back to you. And immediately, the other cool thing is, again, unlike the low frequency radios where you're like, oh, I think I lost signal, the radio will immediately tell you, telemetry is lost. I'm not talking to the receiver's not talking to me. You should probably do something right now.
I've heard two versions of that. Yes, your radio says telemetry lost. And some people say that that means the receiver can't talk to you, but the receiver signal may not be as strong. It's
not. It's only 25 milliwatts.
But your radio may still be talking to the receiver.
Correct. Yeah. That is correct. That is correct. Because obviously the only way for the transmitter to know that the receiver's not working is if the receiver's saying, hey, I'm not working. Yep, that's exactly correct. So that's basically failsafe. So you set up all of your various channels, and you can see all of them are in there. Another thing that we can touch on here real quick, we're doing good for time. Let's jump into the system menu. Like, we just get out of this. This is where you can do things like set your date and time. And the first thing you're going to want to do is go into general and go to volume, because when you get it, it is going to be annoying every time you push a button or twist the dial. It is going to go beep, 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 and it'll drive you insane in about 10 and 15 seconds. So I usually set my volume way down here like this. And you can turn it off, and it has haptic feedback, so it'll like vibrate and all sorts. You can set all of that stuff in here. You can change colors. Oh, I want green, bars and stuff like that. All kinds of different stuff. You can set your sleep time, so where the screen will turn itself off. All of that's in here. Just play with it. It's super fun. But the other thing that is important, if we jump over, where are we here? Am I in the right screen? Maybe it was model. Under model, checklist. When you first turn your radio on, it's going to yell at you that the throttle not set, failsafe not set. And what it's doing is it's going through this checklist. So you pick the checklist. So when it fires up, you can say, hey, this throttle needs to be less than, equal to, or greater than this value. So you would probably want this at 0, middle, usually, because we have forward and reverse. But you would set wherever the neutral is on your boat. So I want it equal to 0. So now when the radio powers on, before it'll start talking to the receiver, it'll check and say, hey, your throttle's not, do you really want me to go? Because I'll go. If you hit okay, I'll tell this thing to go balls to the walls, but it'll tell you. It'll also check for a fail-safe routine, which I love. Don't ignore it. Set your fail-safe. And then all of your switches. So for example, if you have a ballast system on switch C, which is a 3-position latching switch, you could load this, so this is C, you could say, I want switch C to be in the middle position. So now it'll check, and before it starts talking to the boat, it will ensure that that switch is in the middle. And you can do that with all of the switches. You can do that with all of the function switches and all of the pots and sliders, of which there are many. So you can tell it exactly where everything should be in a like neutral, getting ready to go out into the water scenario. Yeah, and so Howard, what we were talking about before, setting your throttle, that was the weights that we were talking about. Okay, so just to circle back to that, for yours specifically, because I didn't do it, and I apologize, you would go to your throttle. Let's pretend it's this pitch one. Scroll down to the weights, and you'll set this to 30 or 50 or whatever. And then as you're driving around, and you're like, I'm feeling good. You can go back in the screen when the boat's in the water, bump it up a little bit and try it again. Oh yeah, and you can just keep doing that until it's exactly where you want. And then for everything else, what we had talked about, like say it's your rudder, when you guys are bench testing it, you know, you're going to move it and it's not going to move very much, right? You in this screen, you're like, oh, I'm going to bump it up 10%. Yeah, that's pretty good. Oh, it's getting better. Another 10%. You get the perfect throw dialed in without overdriving or underdriving the linkages. Okay. That was pretty well, I think, everything that I had planned to talk about on this like inaugural overview kind of thing.
You
I will
missed sound effects.
Mm-hmm.
Does this thing
talked
come
about it.
loaded with sounds like, you know?
No,
No.
it doesn't. But you can download pretty well anything that you want. Ed's got he downloaded all the sound packs from what's that submarine simulator he plays. He downloaded all of that, so they'll play as he goes to like full throttle or initiates a dive or whatever, which you think sounds really cool, but it gets old fast. Trust me.
Well, what it helps me with is you have multiple submarines, multiple models on one radio. And if you
Yeah.
decided to make this switch your ballast,
Mm-hmm.
when you hit it, you get the same sound with every model, and you know you didn't hit the wrong button.
Yeah.
You know, a dive sound, a
Yep.
dive call, or a surface call on one switch, and happens for every radio.
Yeah.
For every
and
model.
Here's something that some of you old school guys who may or may not be running gas ballast systems, there's functionality built in here. So for example, if you blow ballast, you could set it up on a timer so that it will blow ballast for 3 seconds and then shut off. So you're not wasting gas every time you blow. And if you want more, just go back to neutral, blow it again, and it'll go for 3 seconds and then it'll stop. And the other cool thing, which I've not tried, although it may be able to tally the total amount of time that the switch is being in the blow position. So for example, if you think you've got 20 seconds of total blow time, you could see a timer on your center screen that would count it down from 20 to 0. So you'll know, oh, I got to bring her back and get her recharged.
I use OpenTX, which is older.
Yeah.
But I use pumps for my ballasts, and when I click the switch to submerge, if a minute goes by, it will call out to me, you know.
Yep. You could either have an audible warning, like your whatever timer expired, right? Or you could create your own yourself yelling at you, turn your pump off, stupid.
Right.
Or it could automatically shut it off as well. So there's lots of flexibility here. You know, throttle mixing, like all of that can be the old saber tooth units. You remember those ESCs that would mix your throttles and stuff like that? that can all be handled through the internal software on the radios now. So they're really powerful. I'm excited about it. I do not profess in the slightest to be an expert. Nathan Evans, who's here, he's an actual like computer programmer, is very well versed in this, and he did the software or the program that I used for the bower tracks. So you can have your bower tracks move and then lock out your bow planes. So now you have no need for a BPI. Lots of things like that. And he posted up a lot of stuff in the forum. So a lot of you probably glazed over it because you weren't really into it at that particular point, but go back in, it'll show you all the settings, and you can set up bow plane interlocks and differential throttle mixing and all sorts of cool stuff. All right, any questions? I'm sure everybody knows it's called right along and there's no questions.
Yeah, Bob, a totally different thing. I love the background art.
Oh yeah.
Where do you get that? That's really cool, the Nautilus.
I don't know. I got this off the internet, searched probably 10 years ago. It's been my wallpaper ever since.
Okay.
Can I ask a printing question, Bob?
Oh, sure.
Okay, purchased an STL file of the universal cylinder mounts.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I've only printed two things ever. One was a silly little tugboat and the other was a scraper.
Yep, sure.
So I get this file, I unzip it, I send it to a slicer, save it onto a thumb drive, stick it into Dave's Krell machine, push the button, and it's supposed to spit out stuff, right?
Yeah, pretty well.
It's a filament printer. It's a Prusa.
Yep.
But it seemed like the first layer, it went around and then knocks the first layer right off, even though the bed was clear, everything else. Is it possible that the file, the first layer, is not thick enough to adhere to the bed? Because I know nothing really. I'm a total novice at this whole.
Mr. Kinkilly wants to say something before I do. Go ahead. I can see you chomping at the bit.
Yeah, I have a very old machine, inexpensive machine. Leveling the bed. There was a time I had to do it every time I started to print. I had to level the bed the first time. Do yours have instructions for that or a magic button for that?
It auto levels. It's the brand new Prusa MK4S.
Oh, super fancy.
So it's all built in auto leveling, that can wipes your butt, everything.
So
You
short
have
answer,
this problem on every print. Can you print parts successfully and it's just this part, or?
I just this part, because I've done this standard benchy little tugboat, and like say this other scraper, and they were files that came on the thumb drive with the printer. And all the parameters were set, and I basically said, oh, it's PLA, and I'd go, okay, push the button, and 15 minutes later, here's a 2-inch toy I could have, paid 50 cents at the mall and bought, right?
So what?
Anyway, it like I say, it started to trace out the layer of the shape of the universal mount, but it went around like one pass, and then the next pass, it just kind of scraped it off and balled it up, and that was it. Then I hit cancel and stop, and I tried that 3 times with the same sort of effect. So I didn't know if there was enough clearance for the nozzle size or how much it puts down first layer. Like I said, it's all new. I tried reading the book and looking online, and I don't know anybody with a machine to ask.
So I think the short answer is I really don't think it's an issue with the files, because I use those same files to print all of my universal bulkheads, and I've done it not only on this printer but all of the 3D printers, because I've had those files for years and years and years and years.
Okay.
And I don't rarely have any problems with it.
Yeah.
Realistically, when you send that STL out, it's a solid shape. What's doing all of the work, all of the horsepower, is the slicing program. That's what's setting all of the parameters that is telling your printer how to behave to correctly print it out. So if you have the correct orientation where it's flat, right? It's not standing up, it's flat on the build plate when you're looking at it in the slicing program. You need
Oh,
to
all right.
make sure, obviously, that that's happening. Otherwise, it's going to try and print with only one little tiny spot to adhere it to the bed.
Yeah.
So I designed
Yeah.
it for no supports,
Okay.
laying flat, and then print it in whatever gross, big, thick, nasty resolution you can get, because it doesn't need to be pretty. It just needs to be functional.
Yeah. Well,
Doesn't
I say
Prusa have a,
yesterday was the first day pushing a button and kind of like, okay, impress me. It was
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah, just
And-
remember, just when you slice it, just make sure that it's flat, like, because it shows a little picture of your build plate on your screen, right?
Okay.
Just make sure it's laying flat and not standing up or crooked
Okay.
or in a weird orientation.
Yeah. All right. You got to think 3D space, right?
You do, yeah, exactly.
doesn't
And
doesn't Prusa have a forum you can ask questions on?
Yeah, but I just new to everything. Just sort of signed up, looked at it, bought it, tried it. Was like, okay, day one.
Yeah.
Let's see what
Yeah.
tomorrow brings. I'm in kindergarten.
Yeah.
I
No, that's
finally found
fine.
the on button for the thing. So
In the slicing program,
yeah.
there are specific specs for the first layer only.
Mhm.
Okay.
So you can say, you know, make my first layer thicker because I know it's going to squash out, you know. But you do have specific attributes that you can apply to just the first layer.
What
Yeah.
slicing program do you use, John?
Let me look.
The slicer, because that's the only one I know of.
Prusa Slicer is what I'm using now. Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's what I used. Yeah. I'd like
And
to
it-
take another look at your pump jets on that deep flight thing. That was a neat
Oh.
looking little boat you had there at your run there in San Fran.
Thank you.
That was
Thank
a
you.
neat looking thing. I'd like to see the back end on those.
Okay. No problem.
Yeah, throw up a few pics on the forum or something.
Yeah, but we should also just be able to contact each other, especially if you're trying to wrestle with a G code slicer.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Well, I looked on the thing and it just started talking. Yeah, like I say, there's so much out there, and you guys are so miles ahead. And David's going, fucking thing. Why did he ever do that? Why didn't he just stay with a goddamn pair of calipers and a datum line and work from that? Stinking crown machines. Rah, rah, rah.
Yeah, it's a cylinder bulkhead, not a freaking rocket engine.
It's just another tool.
Exactly.
I got to do something else to do, or I'm going stir crazy over winter, right? So I learn a new skill. Big deal, right?
Oh,
Mhm.
you're just beginning, and it's a lot of fun. The Prusa slicer is very good, Bob. It's a lot like the bamboo slicer. I think they're related somewhere.
Okay.
I'm envious you have the Mark IV. I have an i3 Mark III, and it has been bulletproof since day one. They're really well thought out. They do have really good forums. Ken, that's a great suggestion. Go in there. Don't be afraid to ask. I think if you think you're not going to get razzed in this forum, you're probably wrong. But hey, I don't know. But yeah, keep at it. It's great. Bob may be onto something. One of the first things you do when you bring in the part, if it's standing, here like this on your print platter, you need to find the command across the top of the screen to lay it over. It's a little curved arrow, and you click it, and it'll light up all the sides, and you pick the one you want to go flat on the build plate. And just if that's not being done, then Bob's right. It'll never print.
Yeah, because it'll only be latched on by two little tiny.
It'll be a little
points
fur
and-
ball of spaghetti.
Yeah.
In your choice of color, that's the upside. But
Not to interrupt, but he said something about being able to call somebody. You have the whole DiveTribe list of people that you can, the skippers list, and everybody helps out. I mean, Steve Hodges has helped me out a bunch of times, when I needed something in between DiveTribe meetings and stuff like that. So you always have that.
my son is a development engineer, a parts engineer, so he's a real whiz bang at various CAD softwares, and he runs his own print farm at work, so he's really conversant in that. And one of the coolest things is if I get stuck, he can actually send me a Zoom meeting and take over my CAD program from 3.5 hours away and say, "Oh, I see what you're doing. Try this and this."
Mhm,
And
mhm.
if we can find a group of volunteers that might be willing to do something like that, he makes it look really ridiculously easy just to create that little meeting. And that's really helpful because you can see what's going on kind of in real time.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think that Zoom may have tools for remote management
It does.
of desktop.
Yeah.
You have to obviously on your side say, okay, it's okay if this person comes in and
Correct.
starts screwing around with my computer.
Correct. Yeah, I don't remember the
Okay.
details. I don't know if he's got like an advanced corporate, version of Zoom or whatever, if the one we're using right now will do that. But look into that because it's it is, I'll beat my head against the wall for something for a couple of hours. I'll call him and he's looking at his phone and whatever, walking between projects at work, and he goes, "Oh yeah, try this, this, and this," and boom, I'm done. It's disgusting. So,
Mhm.
but it's a long
because,
curve. We're all on this long journey up this hill, and it is a steep learning curve. It becomes exponential and curves back on itself at times and drops you off of it screaming. Or you're Dave and you're too smart to even start out on this journey. But it is really cool. The parts I've started to create because of I got a good introduction to the CAD skills is just blowing my mind. It's just a whole new cool facet of this hobby. And there's Tom sitting there looking really bored, the guy who's created entire submarines on sorry.
Constantly
And just
learning.
be thankful that
I'm
you're
not an
getting
expert.
into it as this hobby of 3D printing is developed. Because I remember back when I had my first MakerBot, a very first MakerBot, that was like a hardcore old school, break out the DOS, programming tools, and try and
And the
figure
first
out.
printers the cheap ones were made out of wood.
Yeah, exactly.
The Prusa format, craziness.
I have. I'm in that generation. Ours is aluminum frame, but there was the wood version was right next to it.
I've only seen pictures of them.
When I have trouble, I call Dave Merriman.
Hey, we had a drill press at work that had a giant leather belt that drove it.
I've seen those too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, jack shafts.
From 1919 in the plant that I worked at.
And they still work.
Yep, they work great. I think on a sidebar, we missed a chance here. I want to go back, and I think we need Dave Merriman to create a sound pack for our FrSky radios.
Oh,
that will be
awesome.
Giving nasty orders, and
I would buy it. I would buy it.
I would too, and it just
That's
like,
scary.
no, you
we ever
idiot,
want.
not that switch.
The hammer
switch, you
smashing it to million pieces.
Careful what you ask for.
And then there could be graphics with it too, with you flipping a saw.
I like to see it.
I think I would build a submarine, a specific submarine, just to do all of that sound pack on. I think that would be awesome.
And a boxing glove come out and say Acme on the end of it.
Yeah. All right, we're getting close here. Last minute questions about radios. I know the 3D printing thing is huge. I think we need to have like a dedicated, maybe even separate from DiveTribe, talk about 3D printers, because you've got not only FDM printers, but you've got SLA printers and SLS printers and all of the different materials that you can use with them and the different settings that can affect your printing. And
how do you like your ABS glass?
I am completely and utterly in love with it, and on my Bamboo, it's all I print with.
Is it waterproof?
It's ABS with fiberglass embedded in it. I don't think it gets any more waterproof than that.
I did nylon, and it's pretty waterproof. But
do you need a cabinet to print it?
Yeah.
Just for odor or for temperature?
Both. I mean, the temperature is the big thing. If you can stand the vapors, knocking 5 minutes off your life every time you hit print, you'd probably be okay. But
but they're great prints. It's almost worth it.
Yeah. I didn't realize it, but I was talking to Ed, and I'm like, man, I just realized I had this in my office, and I got about 850 million hours of print time on this. He's like, you're fine. It's got air scrubbers. It has like carbon filters that filter the air. It's probably cleaner coming out than it was going in.
It does. It has a activated carbon section and a little HEPA filter, which need to be changed in service. There's a gadget called a bento box you can buy, and it's an active recycling system using way more carbon and better filters. So it cleans the air inside the printer before it expels it into your office.
That's the
I
problem.
need to
So
look at that because I'd be willing to bet I probably have all dang near 1,000 hours on this printer already.
just Google bento box for your bamboo X1C and it'll pop it up. I just bought one. I'm assembling it. It comes almost completely finished, and gosh, it's like $40. It's like, no, that's got to be a misprint because it's a lot of good stuff for that, and it's designed to fit right in the back left corner of the bamboo, and it clears the platform. So look at that, because I like the idea of recirculating and cleaning the air before it gets a chance to expel it.
Yeah. Cool. All right, last minute questions about projects or anything you want to show off before we go? No, everybody's good. Is everybody mothballing? Anybody up north? Are y'all mothballing the fleets yet? Is it getting that cold?
One
more
Sunday.
Gotcha.
One
Nice
more
day
Sunday.
today, but the pool's closed.
Yeah, stuff to
Leaves
be
have
used.
changed.
You're round running down here in Texas. I'm just saying, everybody can come move down here.
It's 75 degrees in Dallas.
Yeah, well, it was warmer than that here. It was 85 today here. Which I don't like. I like the cooler weather personally, but that's fine. All right.
Hey, what's up with those big sea views you and Frank were popping out? What was your plan for those? You said you'd sold one, but you hadn't really alluded that it was going to be a product that you were selling down the road.
It will be a product. This is done in conjunction with Frank and myself. And we've contracted out with a portion of it is actually going to be professionally, commercially manufactured. I'm pretty stoked about that too. But where we're at with it right now, we did two, I guess, prototypes, I guess you could call them, working out the production methodology. And now Frank is just finalizing the first like production version. And then I'll get my fingers in that, take photos and all of that stuff of the kit that you would end up getting. And yeah, it'll be a gargantuan 8 whatever foot long sea view.
8.5.
8.5 foot long sea view.
Right now, I'm modifying the molds so that it's easier for the person to assemble them. I'm taking out all the kinks and so it goes together much better and it's less work for mother.
Mm-hmm.
Like an 8-inch diameter hull.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And
like
2 foot
this.
across the fins.
Yep.
Yep, 20 inches.
22 inches or something.
Yep.
Tell me you're going to
Massive.
build it where you can put bayonet rings in there.
You need
so
a big
that,
truck.
It can be 3 sections, so it's more transportable.
We're gonna
Yeah.
try and make it two sections.
Screw the bow on and off. That way you can have an 8-window version and a 4-window. You just turn one off.
Yeah, interchangeable. Or
Interchangeable bows.
more realistically, you'd have one for display with the full control room, and then an empty one for RC. There, now we're talking.
With the
Anyway.
flying sub bay.
Yes.
Nice.
And which, by the way, and actually there's a third finger in this pot too. It's a I haven't asked his permission to share his name, but a heretofore unnamed individual is working on the CAD files based off of Frank's physical flying sub bay, but he's engineering retracting, rolling, flying sub doors into the parts. So that'll be fun.
Cool.
Okay. Good stuff. Well, it was great seeing everyone again. We'll keep in touch. Tom, I'll reach out to you. I'm going to let you know because I think I got to talk Renee into a trip out there. I'm
That's
sure
gonna be
she
hard,
would,
huh?
I'm sure she would be okay if we hung out for a day and let her do her things. All right. Good stuff, guys. Well, I'll let you
Gentlemen,
go.
good to see your faces.
Yeah, you bet. You too. And by the way, before I let you go, how was you and your wife? Your last time we talked, been a while since we've seen you. You guys doing okay?
Well, yeah, we're doing good now. I had another stint put in 2 weekends ago, maybe 3. And but we're both heading to LA next week for some extensive testing. So yeah, we're thankful to be here.
Well, we're glad to see you. It's awesome to see your face again. Yeah, you look really good if it matters.
I feel good.
Excellent.
All right,
Okay,
guys.
we'll let you go. Have a great rest of your weekend, everyone.
Take care.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.